Hello friends, and welcome to today's project of making Sakura, or also known as cherry blossom, butter. The ingredient list is in the description. This is made with real cherry blossoms from Japan. I will be using two kinds. The first kind is preserved cherry blossom. This is packed with cherry blossom flowers, plum, vinegar, and salt. This is generally used for tea or for baking. A link for where I got this is also in the description. Let's open the packaging. You get the whole flower including the stem. I would suggest doing this over a tray. You can see the salt crystals here. I want to keep that as well. It doesn't look like much, but believe me, there is flavor in there too. The first thing you will need to do is to take the stems away. Put on some music and do it slowly. We only want the petals. So, that is the first kind. Now for the second kind. Here I have some Sakura Petal Syrup, also imported from Japan. There is also a link for where I got this. This one, however, has glucose, sugar, lemon juice, salt as well, and umeboshi vinegar, which is plum-based, so a little similar to the preserved Sakura. There are real flowers preserved in the syrup. Let's have a smell. That smells like spring, fresh and sharp. Whoa! Let's have a taste. This is the real deal. There is so much flavor in such a tiny teaspoon. This is definitely worth trying. So, let's do some recipe calculations. I would like the actual flavor of the Sakura to be about 20% of the weight of butter. I also want to see some actual petals in the butter. So, let's do about 15 grams of flowers and 25 grams of syrup. That will make it to 40 grams. So for the butter, we will need 200 grams of unsalted butter. That is the important part. It has to be unsalted because both the preserved Sakura and Sakura syrup contain salt. We don't want the butter to be overly salty. I will be making 2 times the recipe, just because I have the ingredients. But you can make as much as you'd like. In a tiny bowl, with the help of my micro scale, goes in 30 grams of preserved Sakura. Then in another tiny bowl goes in 50 grams of syrup. I will be measuring 400 grams of butter. I'm going to stress the importance. It has to be unsalted butter. However, I will be taking half of the butter and placing that in a mixing bowl and the other half into a small food processor. Use the blade attachment. We're going to chop up the flowers, making it smaller. The reason why I am not blending all of the butter with the flour in is because I want to keep the butter white with hints of pink. So by mixing in half of the butter, I can control the color. If I were to blend all of the butter with the flour, the butter will turn a pale pink. Give it a good scrape down. Blend again. Place the mixture in with the other half of the butter. And take it over to your stand mixer. Turn on the mixer to full speed. We're going to whip the butter, giving it lots of air and making it lighter. Do this for about 5 to 10 minutes. Scrape the bowl down from time to time. It is ready once it has more or less doubled in volume and turned a nice bright white. For the next part, you can serve straight away. You will need a special curved spoon, not a flat one, to do a rocher or a single-handed quenelle for the presentation part. The reason why I wanted to make this and share it with you is because when I first had it, it was such a unique and explosive floral flavor, but in a butter. I was amazed at the complex depth in flavor. I first came to know of this when I was working in a fine dining restaurant back home in Malaysia. The restaurant is Lafitte at the Shangri-La Hotel in Kuala Lumpur. I was working in the cold section many years ago, which also did the desserts in the same section. I worked under a chef de cuisine who had previously worked in Japan, and it was under his guidance to make this. This is a little backstory for you, and that is why I wanted to share this amazing butter with you guys. Also, don't worry, I don't expect you to make a rocher. What I do expect from you is to try this butter out and open yourself to this unique floral flavor. Naturally, if you can't make a rocher, you can always use a rocher silicone mold. This is simple to use. Just fill a piping bag with the butter and pipe into the cavity. Make sure you use a palette knife to really press into the mold to capture the shape. Scrape the top to make the top flush and flat. Place a baking paper on the top and place the mold into the freezer. Let it set overnight. The next day, unmold, and there you have it. Make sure to take it out of the mold and leave it at room temperature for at least 1 to 2 hours. It would be hard to spread frozen butter on bread, and nobody wants to destroy their bread to spread this. Make several for your dinner party. There you go. You can always make several and store them in your freezer for several months. Don't limit yourself to just one mold. You can use other easier molds like this rectangular one to give you a certain shape, size, and portion. I would highly recommend you to try this out with some white sourdough bread. You can buy some from the shop. Toast your bread and spread a good amount. Let's have a bite. This tastes exactly like how I remember it. Floral notes kicking around with a burst of fresh sourness from the lemon juice and plum vinegar with salty undertones. It is making my mouth water just having this. This is what I call a harmony in my mouth. This makes for a great start to an appetizer or main course. You can garnish the toast with some petals. If you have enjoyed this video so far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos for the future. Now for some added information. So in order for me to get the individual petals for the decoration or garnish part, here is what I had to do. Take the petals and wash them in cold water to clean them of the salt. Now comes the time-consuming part. Take the stems away, grab 2 tweezers and separate the individual petals from the flower bulb. I have to use tweezers as my fingers are too big and sausage-like. Let it dry on the chopping board naturally. It takes about 1 to 2 hours. Once they are dry, keep them in an airtight container. You can use baking paper to separate the individual petals out. This is fantastic to keep, as you can use it to garnish your next Sakura project. Now, to go the extra mile with the Sakura Butter project, I decided to buy a Sakura Silicone mold. A link for this will also be in the description. This is actually meant for ice cream. That is another idea for perhaps in the future. It comes in a set like this, with the stick and cover. I need to seal the gap as I don't want to stick through the butter. So I need to create a border. Let me measure that, and luckily I have some white polystyrene card of the same thickness at home, lying around from another project. All I need to do is cut it into the same size. It is relatively easy to cut, but make sure to be careful. Just trim the rough edges, and there you go, it fits perfectly. It should look something like this. I'm just going to test it out with a palette knife. It spreads beautifully and flush. So, let's take the butter that we had just made and place it into a piping bag and fill it into the molds. Make sure you really squeeze into the molds to capture the detail. Bang hard to eliminate the air pockets. Scrape well and place the lid over. Place the whole thing into the freezer and come back later, preferably the next day. Let's demold the butter. It is solid and hard. After examining the butter, I am not so happy with the outcome because the details are lost as the butter is white, and since the butter isn't 100% smooth as there are flour bits inside, the details are gone. You have to look really closely to see it. That little thing right there is a simple fix. Just cut it off using a warm knife. You could serve it like that, as it did capture the overall mold of the Sakura, but I wanted some more detail. If you're going to serve it, make sure you let that adjust to room temperature for at least 1 to 2 hours. As I said before, nobody wants to spread hard butter on bread. Since I wasn't really happy, I decided to try a different approach. This time using the same recipe, but instead of adding some real flours, I'm just going to use the total weight in syrup, which will be 40 grams of syrup to 200 grams of butter. Whip the butter until white and double in size. Give that a good scrape down. Once it looks creamy and fluffy, add in the syrup. Mix that well. Take a little out and mix that with some red food coloring, making it pink. We don't want to overcolor it. Once you are happy with the intensity of the pink, place the butter into a piping bag. We only need a little bit. I decided to color in the details with the pink butter. I also have a tiny spatula. I'm going to use this to help me even out the details. After you are happy with filling in the details, place the mold into the freezer. Once you have done that, place the rest of the butter mixture into a piping bag. Then take it out of the freezer. That little time in the freezer makes a difference to make the detail part harden up slightly. Now, thoroughly fill in the mold. Like before, press the sides and make sure you tap down. Place the cover on and place the mold into the freezer. Overnight is best. Don't forget to check out my other videos while waiting for this. The next day. Demold the butter and there you have it. I think this little small detail makes it stand out. Let me know which you prefer. Don't forget to cut the extra little piece to make the flour perfect. And there you have it, Sakura butter. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what other butters you want to try or are curious about. In the meantime, do subscribe to be notified of future food videos, and until next time, bye for now.